Okay. Hello, good morning. It is January 13th, Monday, January 13th, 2025. This is the TikTok live that we do every morning at 11 a.m. Central Time. Uh, and as we wait for the room to fill up, as we wait for some people to come around, I would like to start before we get to the Course in Miracles. As I post this to YouTube, let's say at the beginning of these lives, we'll do a little bit of discussion, a little bit of pre-roll, if you will, about the current events that are happening, that we can connect with the spiritual practice we're talking about here. And how do we? Hi, Dennis Duval. How are you? Good morning. How do we connect the current events, the things that are happening in the world, seemingly outside of us? How do we connect that with what we're talking about here with A Course in Miracles? So, right now, on the 13th of January, 2025, especially on this platform, on this social media platform, one of the big discussions that's going on this platform and online, of course, is whether or not TikTok is going to be banned by the U.S. Congress and by the decision of the Supreme Court. What's going to happen with TikTok? Is apparently it looks like TikTok's there's kind of a game of chicken going on, negotiations, let's say, going on as TikTok says, no, we're not going to sell this to American buyers. And of course, Congress is claiming there are national security issues and they don't want data being turned over to the Chinese. So, something interesting. There was an interesting development this weekend, of course. The Chinese app, right? Red Note, I think it's called Little Red Book, is the name of the app in Chinese. And what I'd like to talk about very quickly before we get into the Course in Miracles is this idea of randomness. I've been reading the books by Nicholas Taleb. Hi, it's at Beth the Civil. Looks like Beth the Civil, but it might be Marcia. Hi, Marcia. Hi, Stock. Welcome, everybody. If you get a chance, if you're in the room, if you're on the live, hit the like button, hit the screen, hit it repeatedly, and put some likes up there on the screen for me. I would appreciate it. So, this idea, very quickly, before we get into the Course in Miracles, about the TikTok ban and what has happened, what has developed this weekend, is sort of this movement to go to this other Chinese app, right? And the idea of randomness. I'm connecting this to the idea of randomness that Nicholas Taleb talks about. He wrote several books, 3 books. The most famous book, I think he wrote it around 2007, was called The Black Swan. And basically, the premise behind all the books is we live in such a complex world, and we seem to think we can predict what's going to happen next. So we've sort of come up in this mindset that believes if I take a certain action, there's going to be a certain result. So the US Congress, or the security state, if you will, has decided, or maybe it's APAC, or maybe it's Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, right? Really the source or the reason that is identified for why this certain action has been taken really doesn't matter. You can sort of do a survey of them. And then, of course, in the discourse and the rhetoric and the interaction, everybody will have different ideas. And depending on the general idea being discussed, it'll be a little more heated or it won't be as heated. It may not matter. But the interesting thing about it is the outcome, because we live in such a complex world and there's so many things operating around in the entire milieu of TikTok, that Congress has decided to ban it. Okay, which, if you take the free speech issue, they believe, or they may be trying to prevent the kind of discussions that happen on this app. And what we're finding out is that they can't prevent it, right? So sort of randomly over the weekend, which I just think is fascinating and awesome. I was so happy when I woke up this morning and checked in on this app, and my FYP is red note, red book, red note. Check out this app, and a lot of people seem to be moving over to it. Completely unexpected for me. I know other people were talking about what they weren't going to do, and some other ideas have been coming up for other apps to move to. And then suddenly this weekend and this morning, it's the little red book, and I just think it's fantastic. I just think it's outstanding. Hit that like button if you get a chance. Anyone in the room, how you doing? Hi, Diane. Hi, No Mercy. Hello, Scott. And there's a comment here. It is unexpected. I boycotted Meta several years ago. I just got the #1 gift or badge. Okay. There's some comments coming through here. People commenting on what we're talking about. Thanks for the likes. I appreciate those hearts. Thanks, you guys. We'll eventually get to the Course in Miracles here, which is what this live is about. It's about our spiritual foundation, our spiritual being, metaphysics, all those kinds of ideas. And I'm just quickly linking it up to the things that are happening this weekend, current events. So I'm very quickly talking about thanks, Farmstead Ferry. I appreciate all the likes. Thank you, guys. So I'm just quickly noting that this idea about the red note and the app that everybody is moving to seems completely random, right? But you cannot predict this idea of randomness, okay? And Congress trying to stop what's happening on this app. It cannot be done. Either this app is going to continue, or if it gets canceled, something will come out of it, right? And for me, that's a spiritual principle. There's always a creative solution. There's always, something else will come to take its place, because the spiritual principle is the connection that is being made between people on this app, the connections and the communities that are being made on this app. And of course, if you use the app and you scroll through the app, you've heard this discussion all week long. You'll continue to hear this discussion throughout the rest of the week. But isn't it interesting? I think it's fantastic and absolutely awesome that this weekend, sort of this idea spontaneously emerged. Oh, here's an app that we can go to called Red Note. And so, the games continue, the fun continues, no matter what happens. So thanks for indulging me to start off this live, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit. Now, let's get to the matter at hand. We're going through A Course in Miracles. We're taking one lesson per day. And today is Monday, January 13th. So we're on the 13th workbook lesson in A Course in Miracles, which says a meaningless world engenders fear. And in some of the previous lessons, this idea of a meaningless world has come up. And the underlying thought about a meaningless world as it is defined by Course in Miracles is that you could say neutral instead of meaningless. And the idea is that I assign the meaning that the world has. We assign the meaning to the world that we see. The world does not generate my feelings or my thoughts. It does not go from the outside in. Instead, we're finding out and we're learning and we're being instructed that it goes from the inside out, right? You know this. My thoughts create my experience. So the Course is saying a meaningless world engenders fear. It says today's idea is really another form of the preceding idea, except that it's more specific as to the emotion aroused. Actually, a meaningless world is impossible. Nothing without meaning exists. However, it does not follow that you will not think you perceive something that has no meaning. On the contrary, you will be particularly likely to think you do perceive it. So, it's a meaningless world, and a meaningless world engenders fear. We're being told here in A Course in Miracles. The idea is that I see a world that doesn't make sense. I see a world where there's violence. I see there's a world where there's hatred, judgment, all these things, right, that seem to provoke negative emotions. And the Course is saying, well, we're gonna observe that. We're gonna think about that a little bit because it might be the other way around. Recognition of meaningless arouses intense anxiety in all the separated ones. The idea is that the ego, mind, considers itself separate. Okay, there's a sense of separation from God, and that sense of separation from God projected onto the world makes it seem meaningless, makes it seem confusing, makes it seem like it's full of acts, events, relationships that don't make any sense. So it says it represents a situation in which God and the ego challenge each other as to whose meaning is to be written in the empty space that meaninglessness provides. The ego rushes in frantically to establish its own ideas there, fearful that the void may otherwise be used to demonstrate its own impotence and unreality. And on this alone, it is correct. It is essential, therefore, that you learn to recognize the meaningless and accept it without fear. If you are fearful, it is certain that you will endow the world with attributes that it does not possess and crowd it with images that do not exist. To the ego, illusions are safety devices, as they must also be to you who equate yourself with the ego. So there's really a lot of very profound and deep ideas being discussed here. The idea being that the ego, considering itself separate from God, makes up a bunch of ideas, thoughts, meanings, which are all illusions. They are not true. They do not exist in the mind of God. The mind of God is perfect, whole, and complete. I am created in the image and likeness of God. I share my mind with God. Therefore, my mind is perfect, whole, and complete. If it doesn't seem that way, I am engaging with illusions. I am dreaming a dream. I am in a simulation, if we can use the vernacular, a word that is popular these days. I'm in a simulation that seems destructive, in which destruction can occur. I seem to be in a simulation where I can experience loss. Okay. And the Course in Miracles is saying that is not true. The world can be used as an instrument to help me wake up to the true nature of my being. And this exercise, which you can find at acim.org, you can find this online. This is lesson 13 in the workbook from Course in Miracles. And it gives instructions for the exercise for today. And it says to start with your eyes closed, repeat the idea for the day, and then open your eyes. So I'm closing my eyes and I'm saying to myself, a meaningless world engenders fear. Then I open my eyes, look around the room or wherever I am, and say to myself, I am looking at a meaningless world. Repeat this statement to yourself as you look about, then close your eyes and conclude with, a meaningless world engenders fear because I think I am in competition with God. And it says you might have trouble with that idea. You might resist that idea. If you go through this exercise, the ego, which is the seat of resistance, the seat of resistance to God consciousness, is going to resist the practicing of this idea for the day. I'm closing my eyes. I'm saying a meaningless world engenders fear. I'm opening my eyes. I'm saying I'm looking at a meaningless world. I'm closing my eyes again, and I'm saying a meaningless world engenders fear because I think I'm in competition with God. And this is a theme that is developed throughout the Course in Miracles, further on in the text in the workbook. And the idea is that God created the world, God created you and me, God created the mind, God created the spirit, and the ego, if I identify with the ego, I'm identifying with the part of myself that has usurped the function of God. Okay, so, right? How often do we hear people say, or do I say myself, oh, that person is acting like they think they're God. They think they're in charge. They think they're running the show. Okay. Um, you hear a real nice echo to this idea and to these types of ideas in the big book of AA. In 12-step meetings, you'll hear this idea discussed. There's an entire section in, I believe it's chapter 5 in the big book, where tells a story about a person who thinks they're an actor and they're running the entire show. They start to step on other people's toes, and they, if everyone would just listen to me and do what I say, everything would be fine. So that idea, which is part of the 12-step literature, is also here echoed in A Course in Miracles, of course, because even as The Course in Miracles says, and the idea is approached in the big book of AA, that all the, we're all headed to the same place. We're all returning home. We're all returning to the source of our creation. And there are different paths to get there. They all end up, they all converge to the same place, of course. How you get there might be different than how I get there, but we're all headed to the same destination. The destination is the place we started. So, in addition to the workbook, I just cover one section of the text per day also. 13th day, 13th section of the book is chapter 2, section 6, which says special principles of miracle workers. And then it lists it lists 8 principles of miracle workers. And the idea, of course, is if I am studying Course in Miracles, I am studying to be a miracle worker, which is the occupation of all the children of God, is what the Course in Miracles says. So, as you know, if you're on the spiritual path, if you consider yourself a light worker, or if you consider yourself to be here on a mission, on a spiritual mission, this idea will resonate with you. And you've probably already come to the conclusion that I'm not here to work a job for 40 or 50 years and then retire and then get put in a pine box at the end of the whole run. That's not the reason I'm here. I'm here for a different reason. I'm here to wake up myself, to remember who and what I am. And I'm also here to help my brothers and sisters wake up to who and what we are. And so bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. Not a bad job, if you think about it. Not a bad mission, occupation, whatever you want to call it. Sounds like fun to me. Sounds like the thing to be doing, especially in this time and place that we find ourselves in. So here in chapter 2, it says the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. The lower order concerns are concerns about the body and the ego. So, what does the Sermon in the Mount say? What does the Sermon in the Mount remind us? That God provides everything for the birds, for all the animals. Everything's taken care of by their Father in heaven. Do you not think that you are also taken care of? So here, again, a resonance with that, an echo of that idea. It says here, the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. Don't worry about it. Forget about it. You're being taken care of. I'm being taken care of. Everything is fine, which is a great state of mind and state of being to be in. Of course, there seems to be an opposing force at work, which is trying to, increase the anxiety, trying to rattle me a little bit. So it's a fun little game, isn't it? Since it is an out-of-pattern time interval, the ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply when you perform a miracle. I will arrange both time and space to adjust to it. That is the voice of Jesus speaking. A clear distinction between what is created and what is made is essential. Spirit creates, the ego makes. What the ego makes does not last. What the Spirit creates is eternal. All forms of healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. Responding to any form of error with anything except a desire to heal is an expression of wrong-mindedness. A miracle is always a denial of this error and an affirmation of the truth. The level adjustment power of miracle induces the right perception for healing. The levels, you very simply could say 3 levels: spirit, soul, body, spirit, mind, body. And we have read earlier, we have seen earlier in this discussion that it says physical impulses are misinterpreted miracle impulses. So there's an impulse coming from the spirit. There's a direction or a revelation coming from the spirit. It hits my mind, and I may or may not receive it in its purest state. I might garble it up, and then as I express it through my ego, through my body, I might not get it right, is what's being said here. So I'm trying to remain at the level of spirit and not get caught up and not get tripped up but by what's happening in the bodies, what's happening in the world, what I see outside of myself. I'm trying to stay focused inwardly. I'm trying to stay seated on the throne of peace and love. Okay. So the miracle readjusts that, raises me up, raises up my consciousness, raises my vibration, and allows me just to embody and radiate that peace and contentment and love so it can be extended. Okay, forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. Without this, it is essentially judgmental rather than healing. There's a very interesting and in-depth discussion about forgiveness and how to think about forgiveness in Course in Miracles. Okay, and it presents. Hi, Norbert. There's Norbert. There's one of my friends who studies Course in Miracles with me. Good to see you, Norbert. I hope you're doing well. Give me a thumbs up, Norbert. Jump into the room. Give me a thumbs up, Norbert. Good to see you. So what was I saying before I saw Norbert? The idea of forgiveness, according to the Course in Miracles, is defined as more of an overlooking of what I see with my five senses, what I'm experiencing with my five senses. I'm trying to go past the behaviors that I see and simply see someone's sinlessness, see them purely as spirit. So where I'm looking from is important, not what I'm looking at, where I'm looking from. Okay. 7 and 8. So the final paragraph here in this section of the text for today says, I'll read this and we'll call it a day for today. I am only here to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. So that is the live for today, Monday, January 13th. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Linda, Teresa, Kim, I appreciate it. Good to see you. And every day I do a live at 11 a.m. Central Time. If you live in Detroit, like Norbert, that'll be the time, 11 a.m. Every morning. We'll go for about 20 minutes, half an hour. We'll talk about the lesson for the day and the text. And then I'll take this live. I'll put it up on YouTube. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, the link is in my bio. Also, you can follow this account, please. Go to the account, click follow, and we'll see you every morning at 11 a.m. Central Time. I appreciate you being here. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.